Part 5. Action and Meaning. Real and relative generosity. Ungenerous men. One man heard of a plight of another while he was sitting among friends. He immediately felt moved and handed out a sum of money to be given to the distressed one. Another, who had not heard of any special case, went out when he had some money and looked for someone who was in need. He asked him about his needs and fulfilled them. Which of these was the really generous man? The answer is neither. Both were generous within conventional limits. They were doing what they had been taught to do. These forms of generosity are sufficient only at the very beginnings of generosity. Beyond this is the stage for which these other forms are supposed to be the preparation. Because people rarely rise above the preliminary stages, these shallow forms of generosity are assumed to be the height of generosity. The real generosity is when a man does something generous when nobody knows about it, or when, other people knowing something about it, he refuses to gain any credit for his generosity from the recipient or anyone else. Real generosity is anonymous to the extent that a man should be prepared even to be considered ungenerous rather than explain it to others. This kind of generosity, in goods, in work, and in thought, is deliberately cultivated in the ranks of the elect, and is practiced by those who wish to enter their ranks, with no exceptions at all, and there is no relaxation of this exercise. Generosity is also marked by doing what one says one will do. Sadi teaches, when the generous promise, they perform. Not to be greedy is, paradoxically, the highest form of looking after one's true interests. Greed harms you. Generosity helps you. This is why it has been said, greed is the mother of incapacity. Why do Sufis excel? Question: what stops people making progress, especially in great writings or producing teaching materials? Answer: an eminent Orientalist has recorded in print his difficulty in understanding how the Sufi classical author Sa'di of Shiraz could have written 2 great Persian classics in 3 or 4 years. This may be a problem to the scholastic, but it describes his mind, not Sa'di's. To the Sufi, such perplexity marks a situation not dissimilar to that of the ingenuous person who says, "I can't understand how that man with the thunderstick can bring down such a big metal bird from the sky." This concealed savage in man is not present, of course, only in the limited type of scholar. He is the savage which prevents everyone from making progress in any field. Correct teaching brings out human excellence. The teaching must, of course, work with the best part of the individual, must be directed to his or her real capacity. In the first chapter of his Gulistan, the Rose Garden, Sa'di declares, "How can anyone make a good sword from bad iron? From teaching, the useless one will not become useful. The rain, whose nature does not change, grows flowers in the garden, thorns in the marsh." People who have fallacious objectives are like the barren soil. The flowers grow from soil which is composed of the right objectives. The people whom you mention as not making progress are working from an unsuitable basis. If you insist on buying poor food, you must be prepared to dislike it at the serving. Confusion as a personal problem. Question: what can I do about my confusion and worthlessness? Answer: people who ask that their confusion be removed should take note of these 3 points first. 1. They should satisfy themselves that I or others have offered to remove confusion, and so forth. Sufis have not. They therefore have to trace the source of the offer, if any, to remove confusions, and apply to whoever has made the offer. If the offer has in fact arisen within the mind of the applicant, he should recognize this. 2. They should note that confusion and so forth may often be a protection. You may not like a fog, but if it is shielding you from a man-eating tiger, it is better to have it. In too many cases, people should be giving thanks for their confusions, which are shields, rather than trying to remove them before they are able to face what lies behind. 3. Plenty of people, and this is of course well recognized today, create and maintain their own confusion, even while imagining that they are trying to escape it. The answer, therefore, to what can I do about my confusion is find out what its cause is and why it is there. Then decide if you want to do anything about it. Confusion comes of not paying attention to what should be attended to first. The problem of the confused, therefore, is that they should become aware of this, first using their wits to observe themselves, and think less about confusion. Remember the proverb, "A sign is enough for the alert, but 1,000 counsels are not enough for the negligent." As to feeling worthlessness, there are limits to this as there are to the reverse. Saadi has designed this poem, which I translate from Persian for you, to see that the problem is one of perspective. A drop which fell from a rain cloud was disturbed by the extent of the sea. Who am I in the ocean's vastness? If it is, then indeed I am not. While it saw itself with the eye of contempt, a shell nurtured it in its bosom. The heavens so fostered things that it became a celebrated, a royal pearl. Becoming high from being low, it knocked on the door of nothingness until being came about. The Persian poetic convention is that a pearl is a transformed raindrop. Your confusion is because you are not getting what you want, and your sense of worthlessness is something which you feel you have and do not want. One of the Sufis has remarked on this same double problem. You must strive to be patient both with what you want and what you do not want, for each of them will try you. Exercise both kinds of patience and deserve the human name. Feeling your own nothingness. The Sufi saint Attar records the great ancient Bayezid, who died in 875 of the Christian era, as saying, "You must feel your own nothingness." To perceive one's own nothingness is valuable. To indulge oneself emotionally by frightening oneself with it is shallow self-amusement, all the more attractive to many people because they can pretend to themselves that it is sincerity or piety. One has to get beyond this childish state. Being a guru. Question. I find that people tend to depend upon me and that when I give them attention, or under other circumstances, they transfer onto me. They regard me as a guru when I try to teach them. I do not want to have people dependent upon me, so I do not want to teach them. Answer. When people start to depend upon you in this unwelcome manner, it is up to you to dismiss them, retaining only those who actually can learn, and who do not use you as a source of dependency. I have no idea who told you that there are only two alternatives, to teach and have people dependent, or to shut up shop. I tell you that this is an oversimplification. Shun the people who show these signs, and you will be able to teach usefully. If, of course, you have nothing to teach, it is your job to convince such people of that. The Dervish's Disciples. A dervish once went to a Sufi and said, "People adopt me as their teacher, and I want to dissuade them." The Sufi said, "All you have to do is behave as if you are mad, and they will soon desert you." "But my reputation would be gone," cried the distraught dervish. "Ah, I see," said the Sufi. "The question was about teaching, but what lay behind it was self-esteem." Well, do you want people dependent upon you or not? I wonder whether you realize that Sufis do not call themselves Sufis, because that is arrogance. I was present when a Sufi was asked, Why do you not say that you are a Sufi?" He answered, "That would be self-assertion and would invite attack." Then the questioner said, "Why do you not deny it?" He said, "That could be untrue, and moreover could deprive worthwhile people of a means of learning." The questioner is perceiving things through his secondary self. The two anecdotes I give draw attention to the working of this self, which cannot teach or learn. Systems. Question. I am convinced that the Sufi materials which I have read and heard about are based upon a knowledge of real truth, far more than anything else which I have come across. Why, however, should the Sufis expect you to follow their methods? Is there no other way? What about other systems? I want to exercise humility. Answer. The Sufi advocates a certain way, or one or other of a large number of methods, because these are the methods which gave rise to the results which you so unreservedly applaud. So, in effect, they say, "You like this result? Very well, this is the method by which it was arrived at. You want some other result? Very well, you must apply to those who are responsible for the other result and seek their methods." In and of the Sufi way. I remember hearing this question asked of a certain Sufi. His answer was this: if you want to learn Sufism, you must follow the Sufi path. If you want information about why you should follow the Sufi path, you must apply to someone who is not teaching, but who is giving out scholarly opinions about the relative merits of various paths. As to humility, we can link it with learning by noting the statement of Kalabadi in his Taruf. Humility is the acceptance of the truth about the truth from the truth. The question can both be asked and answered by the same person if you will first attend to the matter of the difference between learning of the Sufi way and learning in the Sufi way. You see this tendency very often where things which might be admissible under one set of circumstances are turned into perennial truths. Someone was asking me just now, for instance, about the question of selling knowledge. He felt that people should not make a charge for wisdom and expected me to condemn those who did so. You see how it works. First, the fact that knowledge and wisdom are the product of processes is ignored, and they are unconsciously redefined almost as commodities. Then only is it possible to talk about selling them. Now I can sell you information or sacks of coal, but neither I nor anyone else can sell knowledge. Jesus and the apples. I have recently been reading, too, a remark attributed to Jesus in one of the Gospels which are, for one reason or another, condemned by the various churches. Listen to what is said there about selling. Jesus said, "There went forth 2 men to sell apples. The one chose to sell the peel of the apple for its weight in gold, caring naught for the substance of the apples. The other desired to give the apples away, receiving only a little bread for his journey. But men bought the peel of the apples for its weight in gold, caring naught for him who was fain to give to them, nay, even despising him." Think about this story and see something of the vehicle and the objective, the nature of human thought and behavior, and the question of human studies and the materials within the structure. The vehicle and the objective. Question. What is your attitude on the structure of human studies and the materials within the structure? Answer. A characteristic disease of human thought is to mistake the vehicle and the objective, or the instrument and the aim. This tendency is seen in all human communities, whether they are what we call advanced or otherwise. It is as strongly present in civilized as in barbaric societies, only its manifestations are different. The rule is that something which was functional becomes prized for itself, whether it is an exercise becoming a ritual or an individual worker becoming idolized, or a tool becoming a totem. Whoever encourages this tendency will always find supporters, because this warp is already in the human environment, and its derivatives will seem right. On the other hand, the concept of vehicle and instrument, of not seeing the wood for the trees, and other manifestations of this possible confusion are so well established that there will always be people who will understand the importance of thinking straight on the container and that which is contained, and on other manifestations, including the grub chrysalis butterfly one. The means and the end are not the same. Studies, courses, and processes exist for determining, perceiving, and profiting from the knowledge of means and end. Do you remember Omar Khayyam saying, "Temples and the Kaaba of Mecca are the houses of devotion. Striking the bell is the sound of worship. The girdle and church and rosary and cross, every one is a sign of devotion." The tool becoming a totem is especially marked as a tendency when people want to generalize theories, laws, and rules out of situations which require a greater flexibility than just one or two alternatives. Concern and campaign. Question: if one feels very strongly, is it not right to pass this on to others to get them concerned and to form bodies of people who have similar interests? Answer: any of these things might be right or might be wrong, entirely depending upon what the subject in question is and who the people involved are. I would have thought this inherent in the question. You only have to look about you to see the confusion and unhappiness caused by people indulging themselves by rushing about worrying other people and making them worriers and hence inefficient, when concern and propaganda are no substitutes for knowledge and action. However, one of the great advantages of the fact that this wet hen behavior is so widespread is that it provides almost daily illustrations of its ugliness and often destructive role, enabling us to avoid it when it is functioning in that way. Interestingly enough, it has not always been felt that agitation and recruitment are the answers to problems, or even that one does not benefit from sustaining problems, rather than always sharing them. We can also meditate on the words of the Anwar-e-Suhaili, the Lights of Canopus, where it is said, "The nightingale which cannot bear the thorn, it is best that it should never speak of the rose." Above all, I think that there is a need to know whether one is right, as well as a compulsion to believe that one is right and to convince others of this. The former attitude is just as important, but the latter perhaps is the one more familiar to most people. Concerned people may be right, but they may only be satisfying personal desires. To train other people to share these desires may be admissible, but only, I think, when they are recognized as desires, and not represented as necessities. In the latter case, if they are in fact not truths, both deception and self-deception are taking place. Can this be good? The Man of Straw. Sa'di tells in his Bostan of a wise youth from a decent land who joined a community of people in Darband. He was a person of excellence, intelligence, and discernment, and the people received him well. One day the chief of the pious said to him, "Go, scatter the rubbish from the mosque." The youth went outside and disappeared. When he was seen the next day, he was accused of lack of respect for service and selfishness for not doing the sweeping. "Do you not know, O selfish infant, that men succeed through service?" Now these people had assumed that he saw what they saw, the dust in the mosque, but he was not a superficialist like them. He began to weep, burning with sincerity. "I saw no dust or soil within that building. I set off so that the mosque should be clear of straw." This man regarded himself as the pollutant of the mosque, while the others only thought of the campaign of cleaning and the concern for the superficial. Even when there was no dust in the mosque, they still wanted it swept. Sa'di continues, "This only is the way of the dervish, to humble his person. For eminence choose humility, for to that roof there is no ladder but this." The last line contains a play on words and can also read in the Persian, "To that heaven there is no advance than this." Alas, people have not changed much since Sa'di. Here is a sentence from a letter written to me by a famous man who is renowned for his spiritual virtues. "I used to be proud and vain. Since I started to study Eastern teachings, I am so humble you would hardly believe it."